Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. I'm Joe Sandiego, and with me we have Jackson Lambros from Outlap Media, Joshua Birch from Joshua Birch Motorsports, and Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight. Link in the video description to Jackson and Josh's channels. A big thank you to our Patreon investors calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in us throughout the times here at the Grid Network, helping us grow. It's been a very exciting time for us all right here. Encourage everyone, be sure to invest in us. You get some Grid Network stickers. You want to do a one-time investment through Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat, feel free to do so. You can even buy a Super Chat or a cup of coffee for a particular member of the Grid Network team. They'll thank you on the air. We'll forward them the funds. And the simplest way to support us, hit the bell icon, subscribe to us right here on the Grid Network. Of course, you, the viewers, are what makes this show work. And we have a lot of racing to talk about. Jackson, let's start over with the NASCAR Cup Series.
Yes, let's. Mart 350 at Sonoma. Kyle Larson, another win with a shiny new playoff waiver after being granted that a couple days ago. He was celebrating as MTJ actually ran out of gas on the last lap. Man, he had a bad day. Came home 27th after running in second. Not a good day for JGR. All their drivers involved in one incident or another. Belt still managed a 9th place finish, but only Gibbs' car inside the top 20. So my question for you, gentlemen, do we think this is going to be the start of the dog days for Joe Gibbs Racing?
Looks like it, doesn't it, sadly, as well. It's just, it seems to happen at least one point every year. They get into a bit of a slump and then we all go, oh, here we go. And then it sort of gets to the end of the playoffs and we go, yeah, okay, now they're starting to come back ever so slightly. But really bad day as well. I was so disappointed for Truex at the line. It's like I said to us, we were all saying in the group chat as well about it. And I said, just somebody push him. It's not allowed, obviously. You can't push anyone across the line. But I was just saying, just push him. He was inches across the line. It was something like 3 minutes it was scored at as his overall lap time at the end. But yeah, it was a bitter blow, unfortunately, as well. And Bell, it's back in 9th place as well. The highs and lows he's had in the first half of this season as well. And it does feel like we've come, doesn't it, to sort of the halfway stage of what we're experiencing, because we've finished now the Fox broadcast stuff and now we're going towards NBC for the second half of the season. So it feels like a natural point to sort of just stop, reflect and look back and sort of expect what we're going to have in the next couple of races before we get into September and the start for the playoffs. But not a great day for Joe Gibbs Racing.
Not a great day, like you said. I am a little bit more optimistic for Joe Gibbs Racing. One of the things with the summer stretch coming up is not as crazy as it is in the past, because we do have that break for the Olympics coming. So that could be a great opportunity. The big concern I do have is what happened with the engine. Denny Hamlin, no warning, no mistake. It blew. Last weekend, Christopher Bell. I'm pretty confident Toyota Racing Development, Joe Gibbs, are going to be evaluating, seeing if they can find any signs of improvement to their engine reliability, because this is just very uncharacteristic. Ty Gibbs, he is still learning. Made a big mistake today at the track. A lot of folks, I think, critical still of what he did yesterday. And Christopher Bell, he was just victim of the wrong place, wrong time when Josh Green went bowling into turn 11, taking out several vehicles, ruining their days. Overall, I feel Joe Gibbs Racing, they're still got the potential. They're still one of the big three. But it's just going to be so hard to see what happens in the summer stretch, because if they could turn it around, they're going to say, okay, Sonoma, that was just a one-time thing. Gateway, Christopher Bell, that was just one of those rare things. But if we exit Iowa and they have, again, bad engine issues, poor results, then I think we'll start talking about this could be a long summer stretch, but at least it got an Olympic break coming.
Yeah, 100%. And tragedy in what was supposed to be Toyota's home race, having joint title sponsorship for this event, and what was also one of the longest in time-wise. 9 cautions today, with 3 in stage 1 before the stage break. For reference, last year it was only 2, and that was a race without stage breaks. Record was 9 cautions back in 1990 when the road course experience was lacking by a lot of drivers. Stage 3, surprisingly caution-free until the aforementioned MTJ incident, which was come to the checkered. Guys, are we surprised with how this race played out?
I shouldn't be surprised, but I was, just because we knew there was a repave, brand new pavement. We know what happens. But then just the way the race played out, it did catch me by surprise, just because it was like, okay, I thought we'll have a couple more cautions here or there, particularly with the grip, more aggressiveness. We saw that on the restarts, but I don't think it really played out as in the tire fall off like I anticipate. That seemed to be very straightforward. It seems once we got things going normal, then we had essentially that caution-free stage, the third stage, which bucks the trend where most of the races, stage 1 has been caution-free, the third stage, chaos. If Martin Truex Jr. didn't run out of gas, it would have been just straightforward. He'd be in second place, caution-free, third stage. But the race really did play out so differently that I think it really did mix up the strategy for a lot of teams. Joey Logano, tough break. He thought he was going to be smart, come through the field. His day got ruined when I believe Chase Briscoe spun around and collect him. But then you saw how it worked with AJ Allmendinger, where he came at finishing the top 5 or top 10, I believe. There he is. Just missed the top 5 by 1 spot. So this race really played out in a way where it did surprise me. And I think a lot of folks, especially the teams, didn't anticipate with all these cautions.
I think it was better than COTA. If the only other road course event we've had this year as well on the Circuit of the Americas, because at COTA we were all going, well, this is incredibly boring, because we had, what was it, 60 laps in total, and it was just nothing happened. Barely any overtakes, nothing out there as well. 9 cautions gave us 10 starts in total with the original start. It gave us a lot of excitement to look at. Then it did quieten down, and by the time I actually got to properly sit down and keep a main eye on it as well, after finishing up with yourself, Jackson, on IndyCar, and then in Montreal as well for Canada, it was just quietening down. And I liked how the race was sort of changing in the last few moments as well. And we had 10 laps to go, and we had the top 4 all together still running up, and it was a smoother start as well. Didn't expect it. It was better than what we had in COTA to be close together. Yeah, the stage breaks being back at the road courses this year as well. It some people like it, some people don't. I think it sort of helped proceedings today. And I definitely think as well, as you mentioned, Joe, the track surface being redone as well, it always changes racing. We saw it in Montreal today. The fact that the racing wouldn't have been as good in Formula One if it wasn't for the fact that the track had been resurfaced, and the lack of grip meant that it was an exciting Grand Prix. We'll get more on that later. And the same kind of in Road America that's been done in parts as well with the resurface. So it's been a good weekend actually for close racing, and we've all pretty much lost our voices from what we've been talking about it.
Yeah.
Good racing overall. And you bring up a good point with Circuits of Americas. I do think we know the flaws of this car is not exactly the greatest in road course racing compared to Xfinity Series. But I think the track also plays a role as well too. Circuits of America,
100%.
One of the big things, those runoffs, you could go feet and feet off the track. It's all pavement. Here, as soon as you screw up, it's dust and you're losing ground. Austin Cindric went for a ride up the hill, collecting air. So I do think the track, Sonoma, last few years with this car, nothing. This year, the repave, the aggression on those restarts. And like you said, that the way the strategy played out and the close racing we had, it was a pleasant surprise. I would like to see this continue, particularly Watkins Glen, which is going to be in the playoffs.
No, 100%. And Josh, we were chatting earlier about what it would take for us to get the Cup Series back to Road America, and Joe making a fantastic point there, because I don't know how those cars would act in such a harsh environment, especially if you're throwing a couple wheels off. Obviously, there's some runoff on some of the deeper braking areas, but if you're trying to, drop 2-3 wheels in the grass, you're digging a splitter into the grass, no problem.
Well, we saw how Newgarden got affected in the IndyCar as well in qualifying, just making one small mistake, and and that's with a car that has specifically designed road course elements for the NASCAR. And
Right.
this new generation, not having road course as its strongest suit, only running on 4 in the total of the season, not counting the Roval, then you're constantly going to be sort of shifting balance between top speed, drag, aero. So to get back to Road America, you'll have to I think change tire setups. So you'll have to have something that can grip into the surface more at Road America, and B, they'd have to introduce a a proper road course package that is better for A, closer running, B, more top speed running, and C, not so heavy. The fact that we keep having these off-track excursions like we saw at COTA and here in Sonoma as well. So they just
We are
need to
just
sort of
making the Garage 56 car at that point.
yeah, effectively, we should have. Well, we say it sounds stupid, but IndyCar has different packages for ovals to road courses. NASCAR should probably do the same thing as well, because at the end of the day, you've got to have closer racing.
Right.
And back in the 90s, it was very common. A team would have a super speedway car. This car is for Talladega, Daytona. This car for the road course, the short tracks. We have a common chassis. Why not keep that common chassis, but have 3 different packages for each one? That'd be much better.
And I know that as we get a question from John Bender here, who are the NBC announcers for NASCAR this year? We don't know either, John. We've got a vague idea, but unless someone here knows something I don't, I think it's still TBA.
Yeah, nothing confirmed yet. I would assume Jeff Burton, since he was at the Indy 500.
Right.
We'll see
Lee
the rest.
Diffie's, is he still going? Is he going over for you after the end?
He will be
of
after the
IndyCar?
Olympics. He'll be for Cup.
Mhm.
Yeah, excellent. That's going to be a lot of fun.
So going back to kind of this conversation about this next gen car, right? It's caused a lot of controversy in a lot of different ways, but something you can't deny is the amount of new talent it's enticed certain drivers to come in and give it a shot, whether it's Jordan Taylor, Jenson Button, Kamui Kobayashi, and of course the plethora of guys from the V8 Supercars Championship. So let's talk about a couple of guys from down under who came up to just give this a shot, right? The current Supercars points leader, Will Brown, was running consistently but had mechanical issues. Last year, Brody Kostecki wanted to give it a shot, finished 22nd in Indy. Cam Waters, unfortunately caught up in turn 11 with a mess with Josh Berry, had to retire as a result of that with suspension problems. We are clearly, guys, in this supercars like invasion, right? So starting with you, Josh, has the image of supercar drivers being on another level kind of diminished over time since we've seen Shane win at Chicago and now back-to-back at Portland and Sonoma?
I'll even throw in Scott McLaughlin in IndyCar in that,
Oh,
that mix
100%.
as well. Because I think the one great thing with supercars is supercars is an all-rounder, in my opinion. You've got road courses, you've got street courses, and you've got just so different type of weather to race in as well. So you train younger down there, and the summers they're different as well. So you're racing at different times of the year. Jim Clark, bless him as well. We all remember, I think, was it the 67 season as well? He was flying around the world. He was doing the Australian Touring Car Championship, which is now Supercars. He was doing British Touring Cars. He was doing Formula 1, Formula 2, IndyCar. He was all over the place. And that's because racing was all over the world. So he said Australia was one of the best series to race at because the talent over there is so high. And we've seen Alan Jones coming in as well, Mark Webber, Danny Ricciardo, many, many more. Now we add in as well over here for Shane Van Gisbergen's come over, and he aced Chicago straight away,
right?
As we all knew he would, because NASCAR had never done a road course before in a very, very long time. If you want to count Daytona Beach as a road course, then you can do, but or street circuit. So I was very, very impressed with what happened at Chicago, and it was only a matter of time until he won in Xfinity, And coming back to Cup Series for more, I think SVG is going to make the switch over and be one of the top drivers in NASCAR quite quickly due to his experience over in supercars. No, in my opinion, it hasn't worn off because it's something brand new, because it's someone who's been a legend in another series coming over to try and do it again. Are we all bored of Scott McLaughlin? Arguably, the shine has gone off. He's a supercar driver, and now you think of him as a Penske driver.
Right.
But in my opinion, he's still very much right up there as a top driver, and he took his time to make sure he is. And that's one thing I can always say about the Australians. They take their time to be the best at things.
No, 100%. And before we throw it over to Joe, I'd argue that there's maybe still a bit of a grain of salt when Shane first won at Chicago. And by that, I mean super tight street corners, super loose conditions, right? And that is what Shane lived and breathed as a supercar driver, right? To be able to be on that edge of grip in a concrete canyon. So you throw him in an Xfinity car on an oval, and where's that going to translate, right? And then you see him do consistently well at the start of the season at Atlanta, at Talladega. And okay, that's awesome, but can we see this guy wheel in a road course on a totally even field where that's not a factor? Back to back at Portland and Sonoma. So, Joe, I feel like any doubt of this guy's skill as a Cup Series driver and definitely as an Xfinity driver right now, out the window.
Yeah, it's out the window. One of the big things I feel, supercars, especially longtime viewers here, they know we've been following it for years when Scott McLaughlin was dominating the supercar series. Then we had Shane Van Gisbergen dominating the series. They are both incredibly talented. Look at what they've done since they went over to IndyCar, NASCAR. Shane Van Gisbergen even done World Rally Championship, WRC2, and got a podium. These two are just phenomenal at what they do. And that region, as you mentioned, Josh, the talent we got, Scott Dixon, we have Will Power. I mean, so many great drivers across the motorsports. Nick Cassidy, who's potentially trying to get his first Formula E World Championship. His teammate, Mitch Evans. So much talent there. What Shane Van Gisbergen done in Chicago, as you point out, Jackson, the perfect storm with the rain, the conditions, first time, go out there, get the win. Because at Indianapolis, yeah, the road course only been there a few years, but just enough where Michael McDowell, he just had that on lockdown. Now that's the case for Cam Waters, Brody Kosecki. They're going to races where it's not the first time for the Cup Series. They are going. Sonoma's been on the schedule since Riverside disappeared. So the teams have notes. The drivers have won there several times, especially Martin Truex. He was up there. And I've got to say, Richard Childress Racing is not exactly top tier equipment. That's where essentially, we saw Will Brown. He had mechanical issues. How would he done differently if he was with Hendrick Motorsports? So overall, I don't think it has diminished the level at all. They are super talented. It's just Chicago was just such the perfect situation for SVG.
It was a win catered to him.
Pretty much, it was handed to him in a silver platter to get the win. The only way he would have not won was, we talked about then, we thought someone was just going to spin him out and restart.
Oh, gosh. That makes way too much sense to happen. Is that the one, Chicago piece of memorabilia you have, Josh?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Understandable. Very understandable.
I have a Detroit top that somebody forgot to wear when we were in Detroit. So that was a bad mistake. But yeah, I'll be wearing that the race.
From Adam here, I'd like to see someone from NASCAR try supercars. Maybe Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr. went to Australia to test for a few years ago. Greg Murphy was a legend in supercars. He's from New Zealand. Yeah, and going back to that, I mean, my brain instantly goes to Hinch and Rossi sharing a car. I forget what team that was. And, it was awesome to see them there, but they got their butts handed to them.
Yeah, it's amazing the talent over there when it comes to the supercar series. Everything going on. And I just think that series just needs some more attention. Then people will really know, because it still just amazed me how a lot of folks, they're just getting new and accustomed to what SVG is doing. Really, all of us knew what he's capable of doing. Kobe, I gotta say, when it comes to SVG, one of the drivers he fought with, Scott McLaughlin, it looked like he was going to try to get the win today, but he had to fight off his teammates.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. It was all Team Penske at Road America. And before I get into the IndyCar part, I just want to say that post-race inspection is complete at Sonoma Raceway. So Kyle Larson is confirmed as your race winner. So all results now are official. And on a day dominated by Team Penske, Will Power snapped a 2-year winless streak after taking the checker flag in the XPEL Grand Prix at Road America. Power's last win before today was the 2022 Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, and what a drive by him at Elkhart Lake this afternoon. The race came down to the final pit stop and the overcut strategy. Power stayed out longer than his teammates, Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin. Power exited the pits ahead of both drivers and never looked back. So Power is the new championship points leader, leaving Road America by 5 points over Alex Palou. So starting with you, Jackson, do you expect the overcut strategy to pay off, and how much momentum does this give the number 12 team heading into the next stretch of races?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, we were talking about this during the broadcast. It felt like strategy was such a shot in the dark because of, one, how much of a variable, or lack thereof, I should say, the alternative red wall tires are, because yes, they do help you, but not necessarily so much because it's such a straight line track. But, you know, it's hard to say, because Will Power definitely made the right choice there in staying out. And arguably Joseph did too. He had Nolan Siegel right in front of him and wanted clean air. And he chose to give up track position to Will, and that was something he never gave back. But yeah, first win for Will Power in just over 2 years. Interesting stat for you gentlemen is, more often than not, since this track has been back on the calendar since 2016, a majority of the time, the driver who wins Road America goes on to win the championship. And Will, who's hasn't had wins, but has been sneaky in the top 10 this whole season so far, right? And I think his only DNF, you guys can correct me, I think his only DNF was actually the 500. I think this perfectly sets the table for a championship run, but he said it in his own words, this needs to be more wins this season for this to be something worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think as well, it was the perfect strategy, wasn't it, as well? Because it had
100%.
to be one. We thought for a time, didn't we, in the commentary, that Colton Herta might just have something. We'll get on to him later on in the part of the script about his race today. But Herta was leading in the last few laps, and we all thought if it went perfect, he would take it. Didn't work out that way. But I was really happy to see Will Power win as well. First win since Belle Isle in 2022 at Detroit. That one win he got, that got him his championship as well. And Jackson, you said, we were on about in the commentary, weren't we, together, that when was his last win? And I said, didn't he win in Detroit in 22? And you
Last
said,
guy
yes,
to win
he
at
did.
Belle Isle. Yeah, last guy to go in the fountain.
Yeah. I remember it because you jumped in and went for the swim, didn't you, as well, with everyone?
Yep.
I can remember him going backwards in it all as well, going like a little ducky going in. But but Power was fantastic, and it just had a glimmer of his old today, which I really enjoyed to see. And I think the overcut did work for him, but really surprised about McLaughlin and Newgarden, how close they were racing today. And Power, for a time, seemed like he was stuck at the back, and then jumped ahead with absolute ease. So it was Power sort of returning to the front to lead Penske after for quite a couple of races, and arguably quite a couple of seasons as well. It's been Power who's sort of been the third forgotten guy at Penske. And of course,
For
last
34
year,
races specifically.
last year it was the first year he didn't win a race at, and he said to us on the NBC stream at the end of Laguna Seca last year, I'm angry. I'm really disappointed in myself, because he could have won, didn't win. And Laguna Seca was an attempt. And I know you can't wait to get trackside next time you're out at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, for sure. And we know last year was a disappointing year for Power. In his post race interview, he talked about it was basically the off the track stuff is what really distracted him from his racing. I'm sure you guys remember the story about his wife having complications from surgery and then not knowing if she's going to live or not. I'm sure that took a huge toll on him. And so obviously his heart wasn't 100% in racing, and understandably so. So, once she got better and got all that behind her, I think Will Power was able to turn a page and finally able to concentrate on racing again. I think that's really paying off this year. And for some reason, it really seems like 2024 is looking eerily similar to that 2022 championship season where Power got the one win. And while he wasn't really flashy like a lot of drivers, he was sneaky consistent, having some really good point stays. And that's what we've seen so far, minus the 500 when he crashed out. And if Will Power keeps this up, I really believe the momentum can really be in his favor as we get deeper into this summer stretch. And John Bender says that you're very happy for Will Power. Yeah, I believe it was a very popular win today. Really nice to see him back at the top step of the podium. And overall, it was a solid day for Team Penske, who ended up sweeping the podium as Power, Newgarden, and McLaughlin finished 1, 2, 3. According to Nathan Brown from the Indy Star, Team Penske's last podium lockout before today was in 2017 at Sonoma when Simon Pagenaud, Newgarden, and Power earned the top 3 spots. Newgarden's second place finish today was a great recovery drive after a scary 95G crash yesterday in qualifying. And compared to the disappointing day in Detroit, Road America was a flawless performance by the team all around, or as we like to say, Penske perfect. Josh, how impressed were you by the whole team's dominant performance, given how everything turned upside down in Detroit?
After the miseries of Detroit, it was back to being the highs of Indy 500, wasn't it, as well? And it was completely up for them, as we've got some F1 breaking news coming in that we'll get to in our F1 segment coming in as well. That is lighting up my iPad like a Christmas tree. But yeah, the Penske's today were absolutely fantastic, and so right they should have been. They earned their way back to the front after a difficult weekend, and it has been a difficult weekend for them, with Newgarden crashing in qualifying yesterday as well with a heavy hit, a brand new car coming in as well for today, and now having that advantage in the race. It was fantastic, and for Power to win was brilliant, and it was just between those three for the race. Thought for a time it could be Herta. Just absolutely perfect. What a race it was as well. It was fantastic for the Penske. I am very happy with what they've done today.
No, 100%. It was the mentality of put every single bad thing that's happened to us in the past 7 races behind us, and let's adapt and treat this like it is the only race that matters. And I think that's the Penske way, genuinely, because they're tackling all of this with, I don't want to say it's a Chip Ganassi way to be so productive with your strategy, right? But we had a lot of chaos early on, and instantly they were like, okay, clean slate. We're not committing to any plans. We're not going to try and go in like some of the guys like Award or anybody else did. And it was that beautiful mix of perfect strategy timing and raw pace. And of course, these three being able to coexist with each other on track and not getting too argy-bargy, right? So when you put all these together, what you get, guys, is the first Penske 1, 2, 3, the first all Penske podium since Sonoma in 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. No, that was the season finale in 17 as well.
Believe so,
Yeah.
yes. When Newgarden got his first championship.
Yeah, definitely been a
That was
long
a crazy
time
one.
since that happened. Yeah, and I guess we'll move on. And at first, it seemed like Colton Herta was going to have another bad day when he started on the front row and got spun by Joseph Newgarden at the start. Then Herta got spun again and lost part of his diffuser. Herta was on pace for another disappointing finish, but somehow the strategy all worked out in his favor, and he brought the number 26 Andretti Global Honda home in 6th place. And after the race, Herta wondered why Newgarden wasn't penalized for avoidable contact. Jackson, do you think a penalty should have been issued to Newgarden for the contact with Herta?
I think it was an understandable mistake because you had Herta checking up because you've got 2 cars. You had Linus Lindqvist who was broadside in front of you. You're going to go on the brakes. So I think it was honestly unavoidable. I'd argue it as that. But going back to how this was a turnaround for Penske, I couldn't predict the top 10 in Detroit. You can't predict the top 10 in Detroit, just the way that chaos of that race worked. But I think we have a lot of parallels for willpower from that race to Colton Herta in this race. And that is taking this race one lap at a time, going back into the pit lane and regrouping and not letting eagerness get ahead of you, because we've had a lot of drives where Herta maybe loses it on himself or maybe ends his own race where he's driving his head off. But it is I think it's just going back to that kind of maturity we've slowly started to see from Herta, and arguably with Andretti as a whole. You had Kyle Kirkwood right in front of him. You had Marcus Ericsson in ninth. It's a top 10 for all the guys in Andretti Global. So I think Michael's got to be happy with the results today.
If I, excuse me, my voice is going.
No, you're good.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't Herta say that he needed to take something up to the stewards and start doing something to them as well? You can, it's because he couldn't understand why. So he's like, what could he get away with? Because he couldn't understand why Newgarden didn't get a penalty. Now, to be blunt here as well, I saw a tweet saying that he was said about he should take a gun up and start shooting someone to see what he can get away with. Now, that's a very harsh thing to say in IndyCar about the race stewards. And I think, to me, that's crossing a line, especially in an American racing series where gun problems are so high in America. To me, that's crossing a line. It's all for fun and jokes, but never joke about that. That's crossing a line, especially with what we've seen in the past couple of weeks with the Juncos Hollinger Racing, Agustin Canapino, Aura McLaren, and Theo Porcher comments as well. To me, that was crossing a line and going too far. So definitely, I think a little bit of a slap on the wrists, monetary-wise, might be required for Colton Herta there. But in terms of why Newgarden didn't get a penalty, well, Newgarden was a bit blind coming into that accident, wasn't he, as well? Because Herta had two cars in front of him sideways.
We had no idea what was going on.
Off. Yeah, Newgarden had no idea what was happening. So it was a racing incident in my book. It's the same reason that Ocon and Perez didn't get a penalty. Because it's lap one, it's turn one, it's a racing incident, and they were both lucky to keep going on in the race at all, because Newgarden gave it a proper whack up the backside as well coming out of one.
Yeah, definitely don't disagree with anything you guys have said there. And yeah, Josh, I believe those comments Colton Herta made definitely cross the line there. It'll be interesting to see if IndyCar will issue a monetary fine or, just give him a talking to and send him on his way. And we all know, when these drivers get out of cars, it doesn't matter what series, a lot of them, they're heated. It's really hot in the cockpit. They're frustrated how their day's gone. So it is understandable, that Colton Herta is feeling very frustrated. But sometimes, comments like that do occasionally cross the line. I feel like they let there, but all in all, Colton Herta can't be too upset because his day at Road America turned out way better than it did in Detroit when he ended up throwing his race away and was able to salvage something out of the day. So I would be happy with a good points there if I'm on the number 26 team. And outside of Alex Palou's fourth place finish, Chip Ganassi Racing had a tough race. Linus Lundqvist rallied back to finish 12th after getting spun from the pole due to contact with teammate Marcus Armstrong, who received an avoidable contact penalty. So I guess that's where some of the frustration for Colton Herta lied, because Armstrong got the penalty for running in the back of Lundqvist, but Newgarden didn't get a penalty for running in the back of him. And the remaining Ganassi Hondas finished outside the top 20. Scott Dixon was 21st after making an unscheduled pit stop for a tire going down and stall, leaving his pit box. Dixon also lost the points lead. Armstrong finished 26th, and Kiffin Simpson 27, dead last, after getting crashed out by fellow rookie Christian Rasmussen in the final quarter. Josh, what's your take on the lap one contact between teammates Lundqvist and Armstrong? Also, do you see a Ganassi driver reclaiming the points lead after Laguna Seca the next round? Palou is 5 points back, and Dixon's at an 11-point deficit.
Well, again, it was lap one, turn one as well. It was a downhill part of the track, but Armstrong touching the back of Lundqvist and Lundqvist spinning around. I can see why Armstrong got the penalty, because he caused the accident. But as I said before, Newgarden had nowhere to go. He couldn't see that accident. That's why he ran into Herta, because Herta was backing off. So it was too quick for Newgarden to react. He had nowhere to go. Arguably a bit like Nikita Mazepin back in Saudi Arabia in 2021. He didn't have anywhere to go. And sometimes you generally don't see what's happening in front of you because it happens so quick. So Armstrong getting the penalty for hitting the back of Lundqvist, that's valid in my book, because he did put the back of him and he could have done it differently. But for Newgarden, he didn't deserve the penalty because he had nowhere to go. He couldn't see what Colton Herta, the reason he was backing off as well, because it's over the crest down towards the cheese corner. So it was all a bit like, what are you going to do? I've said Jackson now. But what are you going to do? You can't do anything. So in my opinion, yes, it was right for Armstrong to get a penalty. No, it was wrong. It's wrong for Herta to think that Newgarden should have got a penalty. Yes, the cheese corner. It's over the bridge where all the cheese is. You know, the cheese advertising, that we make cheese and all that lot.
I
call
know
it
there was a
cheese
Wallace
corner.
and Gromit announcement this week, so I know that's
Yeah. Feathers
hypothetical.
McGee's
Okay,
back.
gotcha. We got it there. Nice. Yeah, I'm looking back at this replay here, Kobe, Josh, and I don't want to say it's weird because like it is straight on the chrome horn for Marcus Armstrong, but also Lundqvist doesn't really get back on the gas too much, and this is all turn one. So it's really, really hard for me to say. It's hard for me to put it as a racing incident, but you've got to give that blame to Armstrong, right? Because it's his responsibility to get around Lundqvist safely. But I think it was just confusion from Lundqvist, where he doesn't fully know if it's safe for him to get back on the gas and take it out wide through one. And he had nowhere to go. And because of that, Armstrong had nowhere to go. Regarding Laguna Seca, give me a sec. Regarding Laguna Seca, I think that race is in a really unique spot because it's been the finale for so long, with the exception of the COVID year. But what that means is you've got drivers who are either, okay, we're in the points running, we don't want to have any trouble here and lose anything, so let's just keep it in one piece. And then you go to last year where, you know, Palou was the champion, and it was just like, we all want to win. Let's make this into Detroit and just absolutely go bananas. So I think we're going to get a very unique mid-season Laguna Seca. I think is going to be really interesting because we're going to get kind of in between the two Laguna Seca experiences we've seen of chaos and control, and just kind of right in the middle of what should be hopefully a pretty dang good race. Fingers crossed.
Later start time too, which is really interesting as well. Yeah, it's a couple of hours later than what it normally is. It starts 11 o'clock here in the UK, which was the same time that they had the MotoGP race. So from what I know from a couple of years covering that, the track temperature dramatically changes quite quickly. So tire temperature is going to be quite interesting to keep a look at. Also, visibility comes into question because the sun is at such an angle coming over the corkscrew that we've had a couple of riders fall there over the years. So angling into for the racing for dive bombs, the corkscrew that we see possible could be interesting. So I think you're right. It's going to be balance and control, but I think Laguna Seca is going to be all out war. It's going to be fantastic to put it mid-season.
We know Grosjean is a guy that likes to dive bomb in there big time, but I really do think it's a repave first mentality, right? Of kind of giving them the best racing surface possible.
Yeah, you say repaved. They have repaved, haven't they?
Entirely. Yep. It was semi repaved last year. IMSA last year was the first race to have it in this kind of hybrid, but now it's completely done.
I know it's stupid to ask this, but it rained in MotoGP once there. So chance of rain just to put the bitumen level through the roof as well.
If it was the IMSA time slot of like middle April or like early May, maybe, but I mean, we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, it could be the opposite. Instead of the bitumen rising to the top due to rain and sitting on the surface creating like a petrol sheen, it could be boiling. So it could boil it away. So you get like the tarmac surface melting, and then you get it sort of level on top. Oh, yeah, there's so many questions. I'm so glad you're going trackside because you can actually see this for us instead of having to.
I can do the Parker Kligerman, like just really feeling the tarmac out and being like, yeah, that's road. Oh yeah.
And there's a 30% chance it's already raining.
Yeah. All right, we're done here. Get us out of here.
All right, I get us out of here in a second. But yeah, looking forward to Laguna Seca. Hopefully, the race won't be as crazy as it was last time around. I forgot how many cautions we had in that race. I believe we stopped counting after about 5, 6, or 7. It was just
we were double digits.
yeah, we were. You see, I don't already lost count. It was just a really crazy race at Laguna Seca, and I think it could go either way, whether or not the Ganassi drivers are going to overtake Power for the points lead. But right now, looking at the championship standing, it's a 3-horse race right now. Will Power, Alex Palou, and Scott Dixon, and then you have Pato O'Ward in fourth, a little ways back, and everybody else. So, but it's still, too soon to say who's going to get this championship. Even the guys Pato O'Ward in fourth on bat, they're still in the hunt. So we just have to wait and see how the championship goes. And in regards to the lap 1 incident, Marcus Armstrong, I'm sure he feels bad because regardless of the circumstances, you never want to hit your teammate, especially if you're taking him out of the lead in pole position. So I'm sure Chip Ganassi was not happy about that. And with that said, Joe, let's talk about the Canadian Grand Prix at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
A wild Canadian Grand Prix that saw a big shakeup on the opening laps. Not as big as your teammate taking you out like in Road America, but the weather. That had all sorts of chaos. The rain started to come down. So we saw the Haas drivers, they start on full wets. Kevin Magnussen went from 14th to 4th in 4 laps due to engine issues. Charles Leclerc, who started up towards the front, started dropping out. Next thing you know, neither Ferrari, the top 10, and in fact, halfway through the race, neither of the Ferraris were still in the top 10. Lando Norris had a 10-second lead after he got around Max Verstappen, George Russell. Then the safety car came out, and where the safety car played an advantage in Miami for Lando Norris, not this time. He lost the lead, got stuck behind the safety car, so when he made the pit stop, Verstappen, George Russell got by. He just barely beat out Oscar Piastri, his teammate. One of the big things, with 11 laps to go, we had another safety car period, but Lando Norris did not have anything for Max Verstappen, who takes his 60th Formula One win. Gentlemen, when it comes to Max Verstappen, we saw all sorts of chaos in this race. It looked like George Russell would win. He led over 20 laps, then Lando Norris. Then it just all seemed to work for him. So with this win, was this more strategy, luck, or the driver? Because it looked like Russell and Norris for a while had it.
We can call it a little bit of everything. Can we do that? I mean, when my brain instantly thinks of Max Verstappen, we go to Brazil 2016, right? In that master of a drive. And what that is instantly telling me is Max Verstappen is a very good driver in the rain. When you think about George Russell at Imola in 22 and Lando Norris in 21 in Russia, these are drivers that are not fantastic in the rain. I think it's for sure. If you want to say luck because of weather, sure. I think it was great timing, strategy wise, for getting guys on the right slicks. But I really do think if you put a rainy Canada, which one of Max's favorite circuits, this is going to be like Max's to win objectively.
Well, unfortunately, Megan's got a massive bruise on her arm because the amount of times I was going, oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! In that race is unbelievable. She told me after qualifying yesterday, could you not tap me on my arm so much as well? So that was quite funny. But the way we communicate the commentary box is we have hand signals. So if I want to say something, we put our hands on our shoulders. So if I've got my hand on her shoulder, I want to talk something. But if there's something really important, it's a shake. And we both do that so that we know without having to talk to each other. It's an old Murray and Martin trick that we use, and it just sort of effortlessly goes in. And the amount of times that she's talking, I'm just sort of hitting it, going, I want to talk now. I want to talk now. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, sorry, Megan. But I think that race was fantastic. It really was one of the best of the season because it had a little bit of everything in it. It was raining. It was drying up. It was raining again. We had crazy strategies in tires as well, and I think it all came down to the fact that Red Bull, the RB20 that Max was driving, has had problems throughout the weekend as well. It was slow in practice. It didn't top a session. Once again, we see Max Verstappen only topping a session. That is the race. Again, he did it in Imola and as well, so it's not completely smooth, that car, and it is getting a little bit vulnerable. The armour starting to weaken, and we saw it even when in the race, when it was starting to dry up, he was coming over the radio saying to GP, I can't touch the curbs. Every time I touch the curbs, it feels like it's knocking me out. And the reason it's saying that is because the suspension was so stiff and the car so rigid that every time it went over the curb, it was practically punching him in the face as well from getting the knockback from it. So that's got to be improved upon. I think Max winning today was down to talent and the right tyre and the pit stop call, because in that second safety car, Lando dived into the pit lane and he got out. Well, if you think about it, he got out ahead of Max, but he was on the wet part of the track on brand new dry tires that had no temperature in them and went off the track. So Max sort of looked into it there, but then on the restart dominated as he always would. So Max had a very good race today. Definitely think that Norris and Russell had it, but look, we've got a race on our hands here. So we're going to have Ferrari didn't turn up. If Ferrari turned up, this could have been very different, but they had a weekend to absolutely forget.
Brutal weekend for Ferrari. I was convinced after a while because remember, Max had a small off-track moment. I thought similar to Miami, he may have had some underfloor, underbody damage and was not going to be able to get around or hold off Norris. But after that pit stop, it was just like that another level of Max Verstappen just cannot be beat. And as you mentioned, Ferrari, no points scored. Neither driver finished the race when Carlos Sainz went spinning. Made contact with Alex Albon, ruined his race. And Charles Leclerc, the issues from the engine. Then they made a pit stop. Let's go on slicks just as the rain showed up. And let's go back on the intermediates. Just did not go. Kobe, I'll start with you. It's been a while since we said Ferrari doing what Ferrari does. Is this a red flag of more troubles, or were they just a victim of the circumstances of this weekend?
Well, given how things have been looking lately for Ferrari before this race, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that this was just a victim of circumstances this weekend. That this was probably a throwaway weekend for Ferrari. However, I will say if this continues at the next Grand Prix and the Grand Prix after that, then we may have a problem on our hands. But yeah, I was really shocked to see how off Ferrari was this weekend. They were absolutely nowhere. The race was a complete disaster for both Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. So there's really nothing more that Ferrari can take away from this race is just to completely forget about it and wake up tomorrow is a new day. So we're going to start focusing on the next race. But I think the biggest red flag needs to be for a certain driver who drives for Red Bull Racing, which is Sergio Perez, who just recently signed that contract extension. And this Canadian Grand Prix race weekend was absolutely a nightmare for him, a complete disaster.
Yeah, I mean, you look at signs, you look at how Ferrari performed in the most recent races, right? Monaco, Australia, and it feels like they've improved so much from a strategy standpoint. And this kind of happens, and instantly, you see people getting their pitchforks like, oh, they're back to being the clowns. And I mean, I gotta agree with you, Cobb. It just seemed like victory of circumstances, and sometimes you just don't have the cards being dealt your way. And the weather was certainly not helping them, and it wasn't helping Ferrari. Were not the only ones that were victims of this, right? So I think 100% it's just victim of the track, victim of the weather.
Isn't it rich? Aren't we a pair? Yeah, it really is, isn't it? Sending the clowns. And qualifying went wrong. Look, it all started in qualifying. They were fine on Friday. As soon as we got to qualifying and it was dry and there were mixed conditions, that's when they failed. Getting out of Q2 was the biggest red flag of the entire season for them. That should not happen to Ferrari, the team that just won in Monaco, the only team to win with both drivers in 2024. Let's not forget that, because Perez hasn't won and Piastri hasn't won. So for Ferrari to screw up that bad is major. Why they got it so wrong this weekend, I don't know. This is a track arguably that should have suited them, and it was going worse and worse from the race. Leclerc had an engine problem. They fixed that in the pit stop under the safety car, but put him under dry tyres just as the worst of the rain was coming in. And then when it, as you said, Joe, when it stopped raining, and that might have actually been an interesting strategy, they put it back on intermediate tyres. And then as the rain was starting to come back for the third and final time, they boxed him with no issue. The engine was fine. They boxed him to save the car. But then the safety car came out because Sainz crashed, and then it was a double retirement. So it was like, why retire the car? There should be a rule that you cannot retire the car unless, one, you are physically ill, or two, the car is literally like, one wheel left on it or something like that. If the car's perfectly healthy, you shouldn't retire the car, because what is the point? That is completely ridiculous, and it could bring up race fixing allegations. In my opinion, it should just be you shouldn't retire the car unless there's a medical or physical or the car is a problem. So really, really grating to me. And it's thrown the championship more in Max's way. After we've been saying, oh, we could finally be having the title hunt, it's just swung back to Max's way. And we're going to tracks that he dominates at. We're going to Barcelona next as well. Then it's Austria. Then it's Silverstone. Tracks that this Red Bull car really works at. And I'm really worried. The only good thing is that at Silverstone, the McLaren works there as well as we saw last year. So there's a hope at Silverstone for a great race, but the championship at the moment is swinging more Max's way. So yeah, send in the clowns.
If we're talking about Ferrari and they're struggling, let's talk about Mercedes, who are looking good, almost like their old past selves. 3rd and 4th place finish. Josh, was this a product of the car being more and more better, or was it more the track? Because as you said, Ferrari seemed to be coming off weak. Was Mercedes just coming off strong because this car is suited to the track?
Yeah, really weird weekend for Mercedes, because we had Hamilton fastest it on Friday, and then we had George, of course, setting the 1:12 exactly on Saturday. That was matched by Verstappen as well. Second time in F1 history that the match has happened to 3 decimal points. The first being 97 at Jerez with Villeneuve on pole, Schumacher second, and Frentzen third in that 97 Jerez championship decider. It's actually the 16th time in history that the same time has been recorded for pole position. We once had a 4-way split for pole when it was timed to 1 decimal point at the Belgian Grand Prix in 1956, somewhere around there. So yeah, it's happened before, but it's the second time in F1 history to 3 decimal points as well. And interesting enough, Formula One do time to the 4,000th of a second, but we don't know that data. So somebody somewhere knows who was really faster, whether it be Russell or Verstappen, and they're not allowed to say, but that will be known. But I think Mercedes this weekend, we saw it last year, the car sort of suited the higher speed straight circuits as well. Remember, it was quite good at Vegas. So I'm thinking this is a good sign for Mercedes. Definitely think, though, that Russell has become the first driver over Hamilton with that move in the last few laps of the race. That surprised everybody as well. So really strong weekend, and I think really strong for George Russell as well. If I was leaving Canada, Lewis Hamilton said it was one of the worst races he's ever done. George Russell said that the car's improving massively as well. So it's yin and it's yang. Unfortunately, the yang is leaving at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think a big thing we got to remember here, Josh, is just how much this track means to Lewis. Obviously, when he surpassed the victory record here, got a gift from the Senna family back in 2017. But just the overall success he's had here, won here in his rookie year before winning here 7 times, 6 pole positions. This is a track that he's had a lot of success at, and I think that carries over, even if it's apparently a POS behind the wheel. I joked about George Russell in the wet earlier at Imola, but genuinely a solid guy in the rain, right? You go to Belgium, his first pole and his first win, or first podium, excuse me. But I think there is genuinely a lot of skill there for both of these guys when it comes to racing in the wet. And that is obviously, we know how that's a grand equalizer in racing, right? And when you put all that together, it's a solid weekend for Mercedes. I think we wouldn't be having this conversation if there wasn't such a, I don't think we would be having such a issue with discussing this if Ferrari was more in the picture, but I think this is absolutely a weekend full of positives that Mercedes should totally take away.
Something else we're going to be following with Mercedes. Now, I have to ask you all this. Something we've been following all weekend since it's been said on Friday. Jack Villeneuve calling out Daniel Ricciardo, pretty much saying, why is he still in F1 on Sky F1? Well, Daniel Ricciardo responded Saturday, P5 in qualifying, outperformed his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Ricciardo said Villeneuve may have hit his head a few too many times. Reading his response, Daniel Ricciardo's response on camera, which it laid into him. It reminded me of fellow Canadian Drake and his feud with Kendrick Lamar, even. At the end of the race, 8th place finish, and he still had to do that penalty from earlier in the race as well, too. So overall, with the chaos and everything, scoring points, first time in the Grand Prix, since the only time he's had scored points was the Miami sprint race. Jackson, did he make the case he belongs in F1 still, and mainly with VCARB again in 2025?
Man, this is yikes. I mean, when you're trying to make this up to a guy that's won a championship and won a 500, and you have like finger countable like numbers on your hands for how many races you've won, like it's totally fair. And I do believe, first and foremost, I absolutely believe that this is a guy that belongs in F1, especially at VCARB, for the time being. But it's still interesting to stick it up to this guy just because the levels of career talent and the kind of driving skill and the dockets that both of these guys have are so different. And obviously Ricciardo still has a long way to go career wise, and we could see this guy doing a lot of things still behind the wheel. But to answer your question, I don't think Villeneuve's going to be losing sleep over it. I think it's awesome that Danny Rick got to stick it to him. And sometimes as a commentator, you predict a guy sucks and he does fantastic. Sometimes you predict that a guy is getting old and going to lose it Team Penske, and then he wins the first race in 2 years and has been consistently in the title fight and is now leading the championship. Like, these are things that happen. So, case in point, it's great for Danny Rick. I don't think Villeneuve's going to lose sleep over it, but this is just, Josh, you know this more than anyone. This is a commentator personality thing. This is how this thing works. We don't know why, but it's just the way this works.
Yeah, the amount of times I've said stuff on here and then drivers have come up to me as well and said, why did you say that about me as well? Especially in the touring cars, that's happened a couple of times as well. I can tell you that right now. Having Aaron Taylor Smith pounding down after me in the paddock and says, I just did what you said about me in the commentary. I was like, I didn't mean it, but you don't bang someone. It's like, you've got to say it.
And Kobe, you know that guys are looking at Bob Pockrass's news reels, and the minute that he picks them, they are like punching the walls of their haulers because they know their weekend's done. We don't make the rules. Yeah. We know that it's just the way this works. I'm sorry.
Joe, watch out when you're in Portland for Formula E.
Won't be making predictions.
I'm really sure there's some people out there in the motorsports industry who watch our shows as well. But it's probably gonna be a while before someone will confront us at the track about something we've said about them in the past. And I guess at that time we'll just have to, do the run and hide type of thing. But in this case with Daniel Ricciardo, like, wow, I didn't expect him and Jacques Villeneuve to be going at it like this weekend, but I think it's a really hard case with Daniel Ricciardo. I really like Daniel. A lot of people really like him, the personality, and especially with everything that he's accomplished in his Formula One career up until this point. But you guys see that young New Zealander in the back of the garage, Liam Lawson. I truly believe that at some point, you're gonna have to try to get him in an F1 car. I don't believe that Red Bull is going to want to sit him out for another year. Maybe they try to plug him in at Williams and keep Ricciardo at VCAR, but I don't really see that happen. Unfortunately, at Daniel's expense, since they just re-signed Yuki, I think he is looking increasingly likely that he probably will be out of that car in favor of Liam Lawson, and I'm not really sure where he could go. Besides, that could be the end of the road for him, but it was really crazy seeing him and Jacques Villeneuve going after him. Joe, I thought it was really funny you brought up the Drake and Kendrick Lamar feud, and ironically, Jacques Villeneuve released an album a while ago. So I guess Danny Rick, you're up. I guess it's time to hear Jacques Villeneuve. Yeah, I'm ready to see the Jacques Villeneuve diss track by Daniel Ricciardo.
I gotta look it up. I've had my point on this on the JV channel throughout the weekend. I said it in commentary. incredibly brave of Sky Sports F1 to put the two most disliked pundits in all of motorsport together, side by side. Not only that, the last time Jacques Villeneuve and Danica Patrick were together, Danica's crew chief went after him with a tyre iron. So, to be fair, it's quite dangerous to put them close together anyway. So, look, Danica Patrick, I've said before, fantastic IndyCar broadcaster. Okay, in NASCAR, considering statistically she was one of the worst. But to have her in Formula One, to me, makes no sense. She's never driven an F1 car. She doesn't know what it's like to be in Formula One. She doesn't. All the stuff that they were throwing to her over the weekend, she was umming and ahhing and going around in circles about. So that grates on me every time she's there, because you've got Ruth Buscombe, you've got Bernie Collins, you've got Rachel Brooks, who've been there, done that, done everything. They are there. They are the ones we need to be listening to. And then you put Danica alongside Jacques Villeneuve, and I was tearing my hair out as well. You've got Martin Brundle standing there going like, are these two for real right now? And right, I want to get this straight about Jacques Villeneuve on my point here. Yes, he is a Indy 500 champion. Yes, he is a kart champion. Yes, he is the 1997 F1 world champion. But this is a driver who has not won a race in any category since 1997. This championship year, 98, 99, nothing with Williams. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003 with BAR, nothing. 2004, the last 4 races with Renault, nothing. 2005, nothing as well with Sauber. 2006, when BMW Sauber got sacked halfway throughout the year because he just got fed up and disagreed with the management. Tried to come back with Stefan GP in 2010, didn't work out. So it grates on me as well that he said this about Daniel Ricciardo, a driver who is coming back into Formula One, trying to refine his mojo with the team, trying to get used to it all, still having good moments. He's saying that Daniel Ricciardo doesn't deserve a seat in F1 and saying that he's washed when he spent 9 years in Formula One doing nothing or all and having accident after accident after. It was incredibly brave. It really was. Now, when I was watching Formula One in the early 2000s, you all knew Jacques Villeneuve was a world champion, but you also knew that Jacques Villeneuve was a bit of a... So to say that as well is just really annoying and grates on me so much, because he's not in a position to say that about Daniel Ricciardo. He's really not. This is a driver who gave it 2 races in Formula E and then walked off after crashing in qualifying, not even bothering to do the race. He does... Jacques Villeneuve has not committed to anything in a very, very long time. So, brave.
He has a reputation himself, Jacques Villeneuve. I mean, I just found it ironic. It was like, okay, him of all people to say that, considering his reputation. Because, yeah, it is something where I sort of get what Sky Sports do, because we see this on a couple other sports. They'll bring somebody because they'll be a little bit more controversial. They're going to say something that could go viral, that could get into people that are casually followed to, oh, what's this? And with social media, if it goes viral, people are going to be talking about it. But yeah, it is something really interesting seeing what Villeneuve said. Sky Sports bringing him in. And Jack drove in NASCAR as well. He did. And
yeah,
like I said, in fact, that was his last professional race, I believe. So,
well, he was supposed to be in the he was supposed to be in the Vanwall car last year, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I believe he started off with Van Wall, but he had a falling out with the team, so they ended up replacing him. But given that he's Jacques Villeneuve, it shouldn't surprise anyone at all. And in 2021,
right, what's his song?
In 2021, Jacques Villeneuve actually won 2 NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series races, and I believe it was in Italy. Yeah, so I believe that might have been the last time that he actually won races in his professional career. But yeah, when Jacques Villeneuve was racing the Xfinity Series, he was very, very aggressive driver and, made a lot of drivers extremely angry with him. I believe even had a run-in with Danica Patrick as well, ironically, at Road America.
Like I said, Thailand.
And we've come full circle.
Full circle in Montreal, Canada, at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. What a way this all just played out. Such an international, just so funny just to think the two of them at a NASCAR track and now they're both at a Formula One track. Just shows how really can't expect anything when it comes to motorsports. Kobe, let's continue this international discussion a little bit. let's switch to the grid ranking. Week number 10.
Yeah, that's right. Sebastian Ogier continues to lead over Will Brown and Pecco Bagnaia in week 10 of the grid ranking. Max Verstappen is in 5th after his win in Montreal, Canada. Will Power has jumped into the top 10 and ahead of Alex Nick Cassidy in 10th place will race in Portland in a few weeks. And looking at the rest of the grid ranking, Scott Dixon drops to 13th after an eventful day at Road America. Kyle Larson is 15th, and the grid rankings lead. NASCAR Cup Series driver Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris are tied at 12 points even. Next weekend, we have the MotoGP Sprint and the Austin TT. The Cup Series will be racing at Iowa Speedway for the first time, and the Repco Supercars Championship is back in action at Darwin for the Triple Crown. And now it's time for everyone's favorite time of the show. Jackson, take it away. What a one shining moment.
Hey, really quick before we go into this, I know we were talking a couple of weeks ago about the loathing of, oh God, how much time until Verstappen's on top of the grid ranking? When is this going to happen? And all of a sudden, we've got some fantastic performances, championship-wise, from the MGP guys, from the supercar guys, and a lot of people in F1 have been bringing the fight to Max. And I think the only guys that really haven't stepped up at this point are the Cup guys and the IndyCar guys, because we've had such a close knit competition there, right? So I think that goes to show just how great of a racing season overall we've had so far, because it's still, do not get me wrong, it's still looking like this title is going to be in Verstappen's favor. But the amount of competition, when you compare it to the dread that we had at the start of this series during preseason testing, Josh, you remember when we were in the booth and we were like, here we go. It sounds like a spaceship. Adrian Newey has been locked in a basement for 48 hours too long, and we're never going to see another car within like a day of whatever the heck he's made. But it's looking good, even though we're going into this scary, scary stretch here that we know Red Bull is so strong for. I still think we're really, really going to see some teams step it up. We've seen the cracks.
Look, all I'm going to say is it's a coincidence that Adrian Newey, as soon as his announcement is announced in Australia, that everything suddenly starts going wrong.
Exactly right.
Just saying. It's a big coincidence, but can the guys at Red Bull really hack it? I don't know, because everything is going wrong.
Some might consider that to be, well, maybe not. Maybe you consider it your shining moment. This is your shining moment. It's our favorite time of the weekend, our favorite part of the weekend, something that stands out to us, something that's Sports Center worthy, whatever you want to call it, thing we liked. If you're in the comment section, feel free to join in, and we're going to go around the horn here and talk about our shining moments, starting with you, Josh Bursch.
For me, I think, forget it. It's got to be the 112s exactly. That I've been waiting for something like that to happen in my commentary career. No, it never does. We've had it close. We've had 1,000th of a second before. And I've gone nuts in the commentary box about it. We've had 3,000ths of a second. Never in my broadcasting career have we had exactly the same time. And I have been waiting for it so long, and I could not believe it. And as soon as it flashed up on the monitor, immediately I just thought Murray Walker and went straight into it. And it was fantastic. So definitely that is a career highlight for me. And I think as well, they definitely my one shining moment, Russell and Verstappen, a 112.000. How much cleaner can you get around the circuit? And definitely going to be remembered as well as the 121.072 of Villeneuve, Schumacher and Frentzen.
I was 13 years old when that happened, when the three of them tied. That was so crazy. But yeah, to see that was really cool. My shining moment from F1, and it's actually going to go to Daniel Ricciardo, because I felt for the longest time we've been talking about, is Daniel Ricciardo worth keeping on the grid? Last year, we know he got injured too, so he missed some races. I think it's very easy, especially in Formula One, the pinnacle motorsport, where every seat, there's somebody outside trying to get in. You could just lose that confidence. Daniel Ricciardo, to respond the way he did, even after the penalty, overcoming everything. Now that he has scored points in the Grand Prix, I'm curious to see if he could take it up to the next level and show he really does belong. So Daniel Ricciardo, with him scoring the points, that's my shining moment.
Yeah, I think my shining moment will surprise a lot of you, but I got to give it to the 7th place finisher at Road America, Roman Grosjean. We know Road America is a really strong track for him, and given the turmoil week that Hunkels Hollinger Racing has had, I think that was the result that team need. I know this team is taking a lot of beatings on social media and in the media in general, and I think a lot of that is justified given what happened with Canapino, his poor response to the situation that's happened with Théo Pourchaire, and then it just turned into a really big mess, and then the PR disaster that it's become, and then Roman Grosjean has an off, and I believe it was in practice on Friday, and then they had to repair the car, and then they come out here, have a relatively uneventful day, you get a top 10 finish. I think that this is something that this team can hang their hat on and say that despite the awful week we've had in the past 7 days, we were able to make something out of it and get a good result, and we just keep marching forward. So I think, despite all of the turmoil and off the track drama going on within the team, I think Roman Grosjean did a really solid job today at Road America for Hunkels Hollinger Racing.
No, 100%. And obviously not quite in a championship or win contention yet, but a guy that's been shockingly consistent for that organization, which is exactly what Ricardo and that whole organization needs. For my peak, I'm going to let's go with the guy that finished in 12th, Linus Lundqvist, who got his first pole, has joined a lineage of some great Swedish drivers in IndyCar, Ronnie Peterson, Kenny Brack, and obviously most recently Marcus Ericsson. And despite not having the turn one he wanted, recovered his way all the way up front and just outside of the top 10 here, ended up finishing in 12th. I know that's not the result he wanted, but I'm sure that this is a weekend he's going to carry with himself of proving his own worth and value in the cockpit, and knowing that he's special stuff. I mean, we saw this kind of performance at Barber, and I think this is, although maybe we didn't get the camera time, I really don't think that's an exception.
Yeah, what an effort for Linus Lundqvist. In the chat room, Adam Chadwick winning the Indy.
How did I forget this? How did I forget this?
I was saving that for the encore show.
I was saving it for encore as well too.
Yeah. I was saving it for encore, but yeah, that's my one shining moment. It's something that happened at Mid Ohio. I'll be in the comments on Tuesday night when we do the encore show.
All right, good deal. Austin Green in
Sonoma yesterday, and he's also happy for Alonso. And then,
oh my gosh, yeah.
The NBC announcers for NBC is unconfirmed, but we know after the Olympic break, sounds like Lee Dief will be there.
Yeah,
we anticipate Rick Allen will be there. I'm certain Jeff Burton will be there because he was at the Indy 500 with the NBC, so that's pretty safe. Dale Jr. up in the air.
Yeah. Jimmy Johnson was also with NBC. Let's not forget that as well. He went over to do the Charlotte race as well. So wouldn't be too surprised to see Jimmy up there in the comms booth, because it was supposed to be planned that Jimmy did the commentary with the NBC IndyCar guys, but had to go to do the race. So wouldn't be surprised to see Jimmy Johnson maybe end up there.
And
love that.
Wouldn't be unprecedented. Kyle Petty did that a couple times with TNT as he was still driving. So it'll be really interesting to see what all happens. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Once again, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark Robin, David Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network. Invest in us. You get some stickers. Your name will be in gold. Visit our website, gridranking.com. We're going to be having Jackson's article up there, as well as Matthew Bros. Check out their great work. Link in the video description to everyone that's part of the Grid Network's channel, so that way you can support them as well too. And of course, any funds, whether it's Buy Me Coffee, YouTube Super Chat, you make it to a specific on-air person, they'll thank you on the air. And we thank you for tuning in for today's program. For Joshua Birch, Jackson Lambros, and Kobe Lambeth, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. And a reminder, Grid on course on Tuesday, because Ben's flying back from Sonoma late tonight, early tomorrow morning.